Ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know what's happened there, but the second that I clicked play, Hatters decided to toodaloo, but it's all right. We've got Dan here. So a very, very good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining. This is another episode. It's the marquee show of the show, I should say. It's the Sherrin stand. This is an absolute botched start, but Hatters is back. Welcome, Hatters. Got you now, which is great.
Good evening, guys. I'm back. I'm just trying to impersonate Dan there and do a Mark Robinson. But welcome to the show, Rob.
We got there in the.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not me.
Yeah. Dan said offline, everybody, before we get into all the welcomes and stuff like that. Dan did say offline that he's got a new internet connection, so he's all nice and excited for tonight. He's a lot clearer as well, so we'll see how long it lasts. First of all, big thank you to our sponsors, New Homes Vic and the Hopper Bros Barbecue, for all your tips and tricks and everything barbecue. Make sure you give them a follow on Instagram. We're going to start off. We've got heaps to get through tonight. We've got obviously the first jab, which we'll get to pretty much straight away. We'll go over the game against Adelaide. We'll also talk about some potential ins and outs for the prelim final, and that'll touch us on the scratch match that was played the other day down in Geelong. We'll also go over the two semi-finals, and then we will do a slight little preview of potentially what will happen if we face Brisbane or we face Gold Coast. So let's just get straight to it, to the first jab.
Shame on anyone to boot a champion.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
Now, for the sake of me not forgetting like I did last time and then having to backtrack, so that's my fault. I'm going to start us off with the first jab. Now, my first jab actually changed probably about, I reckon, 10 minutes before we jumped on behind the scenes here. I was originally going to have a little bit of a crack at all the other content creators that gave Collingwood absolutely no chance against Adelaide, but I'll forgive them and I'll give them a pass. But I am watching. But my first jab is going to go directly to the AFL. And Caroline Wilson has come out and said that there is going to be an opening round again next season. And of course, Collingwood will participate in the opening round. But this time, we're not going to be travelling to the cow paddock in New South Wales. We're going to be playing at the MCG. But there's a catch to it. Looks like it's going to be a marquee game for another Victorian club. It's going to be Spud's game, and it's probably going to be against St Kilda. My personal opinion is I'm okay with it if it's going to be at the MCG, and even though we are, the club that makes everybody money, I'm happy for it to be Spud's game. But at the same time, it's just another example of other clubs making bank off us. So that's my first jab. Dan, go.
Yeah, so my first jab is the umpires. Our game was umpired pretty well, surprisingly. I was worried going into the game because there's a few umpires there that sort of have had a bit of history with the Pies, but the Geelong Lions game, those two free kicks just before I think it was half time, that was in front of the Ponsford stand. If that was a Collingwood game, there would have been all right. There were two free kicks that brought the margin from, I think it was about 30 odd points to down to 15. It gave them a bit of a sniff. None of them were there. And this is not a go at the umpires, in my opinion, because they aren't full-time. Enough. The AFL has got to stop this crap of getting these umpires, put them in the spotlight when they're not trained and ready. They need to be full-time. They need to be accurate in what they do. And unless they do it, they're killing themselves. They spend money on everything, whether it's, Indigenous causes or whether it's AFLW or it's all this or that. But there are two elements that AFL don't do is grassroots footy, VFL footy, for example, and umpires. Make them full-time get them to study videos during the week, full time. They get paid, I think at the moment, 150 or whatever the case might be, 150, 200. Get them full time. It's going to cost the team a grand final perhaps. Enough's enough. Like, it's just, they've gone to 4 umpires, and that's caused, I guess, a decrease in the quality, because you might get 2 good umpires, during the game. You might get 2 ones on the fringe. They've got to stop it. They've got to get him full time, because every single week, and it's not even a Pies game that I'm angry about. This is a Geelong Lions game. It's got to stop. Get it right, because you can't be pushing someone in the back, which happens 9 times out of 10. Very incidental contact, and give them 2 goals. That's just imagine losing a grand final by under a kick, and that happens.
What I find weird about that, though, is that usually in finals and in grand finals, we've come to the expectation that the umpires sort of put the whistle away, and they actually umpire a lot better. Sometimes you get a bit of a stupid call here and there, but I just think, like those 2, that the free kicks weren't there. I think the Tom Stewart one that happened beforehand, where you push the player front on for no reason behind the play, you see them paid all the time regardless. But those 2 free kicks, especially the first one, that one there was not there whatsoever. I just think it was a little bit ill-disciplined by the Geelong player. I think it might have been Guthrie, I think, who did it or whatever, but has run directly at him and slightly nudged him in front of the umpire, and the umpire's already, trigger happy with the whistle. So I think that was a bit of a brain fade there, but regardless, there wasn't even enough contact to really pay a free kick. If that happens after a bit of open play on the other end of the ground or in the middle of the ground, that never gets paid, something that small. So I see what you're saying, but you just don't want that to see that in finals, and God help if that's in a grand final for anybody, not just us.
No, it doesn't. Like, the way scoring should be, in my opinion, and people can argue against it's fine. Pay the obvious free kicks, and they do that often in finals. Pay the obvious free kicks, don't affect the game in a way. And Grant Thomas is strong on this, and he's 100% correct. Don't affect the game, because that play there, that incident, both incidents did not affect the game. So, in terms of like the infringement, but the umpire like paying 2 free kicks, 2 goals, that affects the game. That could affect the result, and so it is what it is. Turtle,
what have you got?
Okay, my first jab goes out to a guy from the Herald Sun, John Ralph. This clown is masquerading as a journalist, guys. His reporting of Bobby Hill over the weekend was nothing short of disgraceful. Now, the guy is either inept or he's being deliberately misleading. There was reports late last week that Bobby Hill was going to play in a practice match at GMHBA Stadium on Saturday. But then there was also some sort of reports that Bobby might appear at a function down in Tasmania. Now, anyone that could have done a little bit of research would have known by Friday morning that said function down in Tasmania was cancelled. But yet, John Ralph was still reporting over the weekend, and as late as yesterday, that Bobby Hill was that attended that function, and then surprise, John Ralph writes an article today saying that no, Bobby Hill didn't go. The club's very happy that he didn't go, whilst trying to mislead Mick McGuan into thinking that Bobby Hill wasn't committed to Collingwood, and prompting Mick McGuan to write an article, sort of questioning whether Bobby Hill's committed to Collingwood's training. He's a gutted journalist. It's no wonder he didn't get the number 1 gig at the Herald Sun, and that's my first jab. John Ralph, you're a dud.
100%.
100, but you couldn't have said that any better. Even Bozza said, "Yeah, Turtle goes whack." I don't know. Is he a Carlton supporter or an Essendon supporter? I'm not sure.
Nah, he's Richmond.
Okay. So he's had his little bit of success. He's still dwindling back a couple of years ago now. So I just find it so funny that in every single week leading up to the finals, probably especially since we started playing, a little bit down after the Carlton game. Every week he's just been saying something, whether it's something about Bo McCreary, whether it's something about Checkers, whether it's something about Jamie Elliott, and then obviously he's had a field day with Bobby Hill. And I just think everybody knew, you could have seen on the internet that stuff was that the actual store in Tasmania had said that the thing got cancelled. So I don't understand why you would still do that. But at the end of the day, it's just absolute clickbait. Just quickly, boys, here, just want to give a shout out to Ben Zero. He says those two umpire calls were effectively free kick 50-50 goal, then free kick 50 goal. Why not just turn it over where the ball is? Thank you for the $5 donation, Ben. Appreciate that. I do think though that usually when there's a free kick downfield, doesn't the ball usually get turned over wherever it is? And it was on the other side of the ground. I'm pretty sure Stengel was going for a goal for the first one. Why wouldn't it have just been a free kick turnover where the ball was?
So the rule is say I'm in the goal square and I deck a player or I infringe a player, seriously, they can pay a free kick in the goal square. But that should only be if you aggressively hurt a player, grab him, push, it's got it that push in the back. It wouldn't. It just wasn't there. In terms of John Ralph, the other thing that Turtle's bang on. The other thing I'll just touch on that quickly is the Goey. So he had him suspended.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Jason Dunstall ripped through him.
Oh, tore him apart. Absolutely tore him apart, Dunstall. Yeah. And John Ralph was going to cry on national TV. Dunstall and King. King got him as well, Dan.
It was just a joke. It's mate, are you watching the same game? He was clearly going for the ball. Incidental contact. I get the fine because you're a bit careless. But, mate, to compare it against an off-the-ball incident that Shannon Mill did, it wasn't in the context. Mate, that guy's got an agenda and he's a prick. And there's too many media like him and Kane Corns.
But Dan, he didn't even say virtually anything about Mark Keane's chicken wing elbow to still Sly Bottom's head. It was and fair enough, if the goalie hit him and he went down, he was concussed, he hit him high, then there is, a conversation about the type of the impact. But Dunstall basically wanted to turn around to him and say, are you fucking all right in the head, man? You can tell he was looking at him are you serious? He went to smother the ball. He's basically strolled across him. It's nicked him in the head, but he's played straight on. He didn't even go down. And I just feel as if it was just trying so hard to create a story so Collingwood can go through a tribunal process this week.
You look at the credible journalists, right? So someone like Jake Niall, right? Most people wouldn't know that he's a Collingwood supporter. I've actually seen people and Collingwood supporters have a go at him when he writes an article about Collingwood, and they think he barracks for someone else. Jay Clark's another one. He's a Cats man, but he doesn't write overtly positive articles about the Cats. He just calls it as he sees it, and that's why Jay Clark got the #1 gig at the Herald Sun.
John Ralph's he's just amateur hours, a flog, and simple as that.
I feel as if John Ralph's so tabloid, it's just there's a tiny little bit there, let's blow it up. Whereas Jay Clark's isn't as much like that. I feel I feel like Jay's a good chief writer for the Herald Sun. I think Robbo was the guy also that would be blowing stuff up, but still not to the extent that John Ralph's doing it. This is ridiculous, to be honest. But we'll move on. That was a really good first segment. We'll go to. I actually just touch on the comments here too. We've got Bozza who's said. He goes, I'm glad Jay Clark is the Herald Sun chief football writer. Bozza just got all the stats anyway. So, and then Mello says here, he goes, what about Caro calling out McRae for swearing? It's just, sometimes there's just emotion in the game. God, if it's not one F word, it's the other. Don't, Hatters. Don't get me cancelled. And Sean says here the Worrell hit was worse, and nothing from Ralph. That's spot on too.
Yeah,
and Schultz actually went down. You know.
Yeah, mind you, I didn't really think Worrell should have got suspended either.
Not at all.
I think both decisions were right, and they didn't get suspended.
All right, let's touch on the happiness part of everything. The game against Adelaide, the qualifying final. This had the dirty pies of 2020 when we took West Coast on in Perth. This had that sort of feel. The best comparison to everything was the 2002 qualifying final against Port Adelaide. I remember that game like it was yesterday, and it had all different types of feels about it. But you know, I went into this game fairly confident. I wouldn't have been surprised if Adelaide won, but I wouldn't have been surprised if Collingwood won. It was going to go either way. Am I surprised about how much we won by? Yeah, a little bit. I thought it probably would have been a lot closer, but I went in personally a lot more confident than what I did against them the other week. I don't know how you boys felt about that, but I felt a lot more confident. I just felt as if we got our forward 50 entries correct, and the way that Adelaide got pretty much, you know, beaten around the clearances by North Melbourne just a couple of weeks ago, I thought, you know what, the only way that we're going to lose this game is if we stuff it up, not if Adelaide play good. I reckon we can match them. So, Dan, tell me how you thought the first half went.
Yeah, so my predictions have been pretty off the last 6 weeks. I expect guys to, you know, to put the foot on the pedal the last 3 weeks of the season. Didn't happen. I was really worried and disappointed in the Melbourne effort. I was great. The comeback was great, and I was like, I don't know what to make of this team. Like, I know they've got it in them. I can't quite put my finger on it. Going into the Adelaide game, I didn't make any predictions, but I was very, very confident. And I'll tell you why. That game that we played a couple of weeks prior, the amount of inside 50s, our midfield dominance, if we had got things right up forward and the mix right, then, you know, we would get the job done. But I wasn't confident. Like, I wasn't going in there thinking we're going to run away with this game. I just thought we had a good crack at it. What I saw in that first half, and especially that first quarter, was the old Collingwood. Relentless pressure. It just did not stop. One hour play got the ball. Yeah, 2 plays corralling. Our structure was back. Our system was back. We allowed Darcy Moore to do what Darcy Moore does best. And that requires midfield pressure. That requires forward pressure. So they've got hack kicks, and our system has to be in place. If our system breaks down, then all of a sudden you've got Darcy Moore, who's forward, can lead forward, and Darcy Moore is trailing behind him because he's looking for the intercept mark. And that's where he's been lost in the last 6 weeks, where we've all said, can Darcy Moore please man up? Can he please man up? But, well, it's not Darcy Moore not manning up. He's trying to play his role up forward and through the midfield, let us down. So I don't think we're there yet in terms of clicking. We've got some issues up forward still with our tools. My check, he's clearly playing injured. I reckon he's got a broken hand and a busted foot. So that's impacted our master stroke. It allowed us second ruck relief. So when Phil Thorpe went into the middle, he wasn't up against McStay. He was up against a proper ruckman that could take advantage of it. His contest, he didn't have a game where I didn't think he would. I didn't think Cox will take 10, 15 marks, but every contest he was in, bar for a couple, he brought the ball to ground.
It's his presence. It's his presence. It's what he does structurally for the team and what it allows other players to do to play their role with him inside.
Yeah, he occupied Murray and Keane. So Keane was like one eye on Cox, one eye on Murray, and Murray was like, okay, what do I do here? Do I go? Don't I go? They were concerned about him. and now allowed side bottom, which was another masterstroke. Let's play side bottom up forward, 40% of the time, bang, 3 goals. So every move that Foley did worked. Quinell's game was the best game I've seen him play for Collingwood. He just, and under duress, he was getting booed every time he touched the ball. And I've been a critic of Quinell in the past because I thought he's got so much talent, so much run, and he hasn't sort of delivered on that, in the last probably 12 months. But that game was outstanding. Outside of Darcy Moore, I think he was our best player. You got, Ned Long in that third quarter, those clearances. He had 3 clearances in the third quarter that resulted in goals. It all clicked. So am I more confident about the season ahead? Absolutely. Do I think we have got work to do? We do. There's work to do up forward still.
I just like it in that first half, though. In that first half, that when the game was in an arm wrestle, because I said this in my prediction in the preview that it wasn't going to be like the other game where it was contested and then we blitz them in the first quarter and they come out in the second quarter. It's going to be an arm wrestle. It's going to be. What I loved was that we didn't go into our shell when Adelaide started controlling the ball, like that part where Darcy Moore fumbled the ball. And look, that type of shit happens. And yeah, in my head, and I did the live stream, and you can see I was so pissed off because I thought that might have been a little turning point when one captain stuffs up and the other captain then capitalizes and lifts everybody. And then the way that he responded for the rest of that quarter and in the second quarter was phenomenal. Like, that's the best game that I've seen Darcy Moore play ever, really. I mean, he's had some good ones, especially a couple of years ago, but that was just next level. Hatters, moving into the second half, what did you see in the second half and especially that third quarter?
Yeah, I'll just quickly touch on also in that second quarter, there was like that critical moment where Mason Cox was I thought quite unlucky to give away a free kick in the ruck when he tackled Philthorpe, but he kept on tapping the ball to himself. And he gave away a silly 50. Once the free kick's paid, he had to give the ball back. But what I like was similar to what happened with Darcy Moore. The very next contest, he took a really great mark, and that was one of the great things of the night was that guys were sort of making a mistake, but they weren't sort of getting stuck on the mistake. They were then backing it up with another great effort the next contest.
Just on that too, that's remember in the first half where Houston's kicked the ball out of bounds on the full, and then like 2 minutes later he's done that double tackle to set us up.
Yes, yeah. So that was the thing. You could tell that they were so switched on that even that they were taking some risks, calculated risks. They didn't come off. Didn't matter. They were still going to persist with the game plan. Of course, the game was that goal just on half time by Darcy Cameron sort of gave us a bit of momentum leading into the third quarter. Then that start of the third quarter was just absolutely champagne football. The ball, Ned Long getting the ball out the middle, Nick Dacos, the Lipinski was on fire as well. The tackling pressure. I think Kane Corn said that in the first half we hadn't had a forward 50 tackle, and then in the space of 3 minutes into the third quarter we'd had six forward half tackles. Houston put on a couple. Schultz was magnificent. Side bottom's ability to read the ball, having that big guy like Cox, like Dan mentioned, just making the Adelaide backman accountable. And Cox, for a guy who's didn't grow up with the game, his ability to tap the ball in front of our small forwards was magnificent. And the ability of Houston, who has been much maligned during the season, he really stepped it up in that third quarter. His ability to really put on those tackles at the critical moments. Elliott's forward pressure, kick goals as well. It was a magnificent third quarter. And
I saw just on that too. I saw a couple of comments saying, like on social media, saying, "Oh, every time Houston got the ball, his kick was smothered." This, but that's just the pressure of the game. Like it was contested. We were doing it to them; they were doing it to us. But the stuff that he did, like just at the back of the pack or going in and getting the ball and feeding it out and stuff like that, I just think it was so. It wasn't the spectacular things that he was doing at Port Adelaide, but what he was doing for us in that game at that time was so important. Just another one that we haven't mentioned. Schultz I was going to bring up, but you brought him up, and we can't say much more because his pressure around the ground was fantastic. I just thought, especially in that second half, Harry Perryman, the unsung hero, was just doing intercept mark. He was feeding the ball out. He was just in the right place at the right time. And if you watch, if you go back and you watch some of the highlights, or if you watch the game, there's going to be moments where you don't even see him do something. It's just the small link in the chain, which is so important. And I just think he was absolutely fantastic. But my biggest thing in the second half had is, and you can touch on it now, that last quarter, keeping them goalless and Adelaide drawing it back to that bit of that arm wrestle, but us just controlling the game in so many facets was just amazing, especially being away from home.
Well, it was funny because I thought, oh, God, this last quarter is going to take forever. And then I sort of looked up at the time clock, and it was like 6 minutes to go. I've gone, nothing's really happened in this quarter in terms of goals. Which was good for us. But we were still attacking, but they were managing the time on the clock so well. And it's obviously having an experienced side, you can do that. And then once they sort of realised that they were going to win the game, I think in the last couple of minutes they sort of then decided, we'll put the foot down and have a bit of a crack. And they got that last goal, and it was just a great bit of play. You just see it like there's a bit of a scrungy sort of ball. Pendlebury just dances around three guys. Chris gets the ball on forward to McCreary and Dacos sort of wax together, and then McCreary just puts it up to the right spot there, and Elliott finishes off. And the scenes in the crowd, it was just absolutely magnificent. I mean, we haven't really touched on it, but I'd heard that there was about 14,000 Collingwood supporters that travelled over for the game, and about 1,000 SA-based fans. That was definitely a factor in the victory, because I mean, I've heard numerous players say it, that they fed off the emotion of the Collingwood supporters, and that some of the videos that have been put around on TikTok and social media of the reactions to the goals and the fans and the crowd. Absolutely, I'm so spewing I didn't go.
What was the final crowd attendance? Was it 52 or 53? What was it?
Yeah, I think it was almost 53,000. Yeah, so to have 15,000 Collingwood supporters there is a magnificent effort on a Thursday night.
Yeah, just one thing I'll touch on this game again is McRae's got to take a lot of credit for a couple of things. Moving Sidebottom up forward, moving Houston to the wing, playing Cox, backing in Darcy Moore to do what Darcy Moore does. And then the other aspect is that last quarter, I remember saying in the group chat, we need 2 more goals and it's done. We've won it. And I don't know how many goals in the last quarter, but I don't think it was 2, but it might have been even 1.
You just get 1.
Yeah, halfway through the last quarter, the way we controlled that tempo, the way we controlled that game, that was experience. They did not let Adelaide get a sniff. And I thought, you know what, this team structurally is back. Their system's back. They're not allowing Adelaide, because normally like when you're 3-4 goals up, 4 goals up, going into the last in the final, the other teams then they go full pelt. They're just going to throw all caution to the wind. They did not allow them to even get a sniff. Not even anything that resembled a run on. And that's coaching, that's experience, and that shows to me that our system's back. So
we had 20. I was just working out then. We had just over 27% of the crowd as Collingwood supporters for an away final in Adelaide. 27% of the crowd was Collingwood supporters, and then obviously the rest were Adelaide. But there's obviously corporates and sponsors and stuff like that, so you take off a couple of thousand there as well. So that's a pretty decent turnout. And the Pies love travelling, and Adelaide Oval, it's pretty much the Collingwood Oval. We've got such a good history there, and I really do think that losing that game a couple of weeks ago to them has helped us win this game. I think it was just the perfect preview to what was coming. And at the end of the day, obviously it would have been nice to win that game, but then, we would have finished potentially higher and we wouldn't have been able to actually go back there and beat them if we had won that game. So, albeit
it was
a few other results went our way to get there, but at the end of the day, that's just footy, It
was a bit like 2023, how we lost to Brisbane late in the year and then up beating them in the finals. It was like McRae went to school on the game before and then just, tweaked a few things and got the victory.
So we've sort of already touched on it. I was going to talk about the reception that IQ got during the game, but I mean, I really don't want to harp on it too much. But I thought his class and his arrogance in his class spoke so much.
Yeah,
and the way that he delivered, and I felt like, because I was doing the live stream, obviously I can't listen to it too much because you get copyrighted and all that type of stuff. I had it on very faintly, and I could just hear that every time he got the ball, the crowd started booing. And in my head, I'm like, are these guys for real? Like victim blaming, victim shaming the bloke that, had that. But
there's a guy in 5AA in South Australia. What's his name? Stephen Rowe?
It's Stephen Rowe. What a fucking clown. Sorry.
Yeah,
for the language, but he's
that's okay. I'll get Caroline Wilson onto you. It's fine.
He's turning around saying, "Well, I can't understand it. He dobbed them in."
The umpires are the ones that did it.
Like any workplace around the country, if you call someone that name repeatedly, you're getting sacked.
If he had caught his co-host on the show that word, right? He wouldn't even been able to finish the show. They would have sacked him on the spot.
Yeah, the thing is, I get that they booed Houston because he cleaned up Rankin last year, right? We all get that, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, right. But these clowns were booing Frampton. They cold Frampton. Frampton didn't leave. He got delisted by the Crows, right? And they're booing Frampton. Like, what sort of morons would boo Frampton because he's got delisted?
Pretty much once you cross border town, like there's a certain border town on the way to South Australia. Once you cross there, you start to get like six fingers and radiation poisoning and shit like that. So it's just stupid. Any final ones out there?
There's two things I like to play. One is that when I go there, I seem like a genius because my intelligence level goes up quite a fair bit compared to what it normally is. And two, I look like Brad Pitt compared to you red motherfuckers over there. But anyway.
Hey, quickly, I did want to shout this out quickly. Sorry, Hatters. Mick Sacker, the Magpie Army Chronicles, great channel. If you haven't already, guys, whoever's in the chat right now, please make sure you subscribe to his channel also. He's gone here. Cheers to the Port fans who welcome Pie supporters in the pubs and barracked for the Pies. Listen, I have no respect for Port Adelaide whatsoever, but they have done us some favours going into the finals, knocking off the Gold Coast and welcoming.
Yeah.
And for all this rivalry with the black and white stripes and stuff like that, there is just a smidgen of leniency to, like, with me now. You've done us the favour. You've welcomed the Pie supporters, and it really does say something that if Port Adelaide are welcoming Collingwood, you can see how bad the hate is between the two South Australian clubs. So, on behalf of the channel, you're allowed to train in your black and white stripes once in a while. There you go.
You know what? I like to think that Port Adelaide beating the Gold Coast and putting us in the fourth spot was a bit of good karma on the back of Jeff Brown, allowing the power to wear their black and white stripes in showdowns. So just proving that Collingwood are a good club. We're not sort of just saying no one can wear the black and white. You're allowed to wear the prison guard jumper in your showdowns, and we got some good karma back coming our way.
I think everyone's happy with that.
Yeah,
I don't think it's.
I'm as long as they don't wear it against us, I'm happy for them to wear it in that against the Crows. And if it pisses off the Crows fans, even better.
And and Port beat the Suns in the last round for us to finish top
Yeah.
four. So you know
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
They can wear it every fucking week. I don't care.
All right, we'll move on to. So I'll touch on these players first, and then we'll get into potential ins and outs of the preliminary final. But there was a VFL scratch match that happened last weekend, and Will Hoskin-Elliott played, Bobby Hill played. Obviously, we touched on that before. Daniel McStay played, Tom Mitchell played, Ed Allen also played. And from the reports, obviously, it was behind closed doors, so there wasn't a lot of vision that came out. But Will Hoskin-Elliott, Bobby, D-Mac, and Titch all had really good games. I'm not sure about Ed Allen. I didn't really see much of him in the report. Now, these 5 players are probably – you can probably throw Markov in there too, but I think he won't get a run for the rest of the season now. But those 5 players are probably the ones that are knocking down the door, waiting for their opportunity. What are your thoughts moving into the prelim final? I'll start with you. Do you think there's any changes that are going to be made for the prelim final?
Yeah, I'll also throw in. I'd actually heard from someone that knows someone else who was watching the game that the Pies' best were Bobby Hill, obviously, Titch, Mitchell, and Ash Johnson actually played quite well too. So add him into your best for that game, Andreas.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Potential changes for the preliminary final. I'm going with Howe to come in for Parker and Bobby Hill to come in for Steele. Obviously, Bobby's got to tick off a few boxes over the next week, but I think the positive signs are that he's doing everything he can now to get himself into this side. You can even hear the messaging from the players has sort of flipped from a couple of weeks ago. Josh Dacos basically said, there's no trust issues with Bobby at the moment. All it'll be is that if he can get his training loads up to an acceptable level, then it'll be up to Fly and Jared Wade to pick him. So I reckon that's a great sign that Bobby's. You can see on the track today there was numerous times where he's training hard, he's happy, and we know that on the big stage Bobby can perform. And I saw how he jumping over bags and everything. So I think if his groin was anywhere sort of in doubt, he wouldn't be jumping, taking hangers. So they'd be my 2 changes.
Fly has said in the presser last week, I think he goes, Howie's a quick healer, and he likes to let everybody know about it. So I'm of the same 2 changes, the Howe for Parker and Hill for Steele. The only thing with Howe is that I do think if he's not at 85 to 90%, it's going to be a massive risk, especially if we win and he does re-injure it. I know that's looking ahead, but you've also got to keep one eye on the prize, in my opinion. So, but I would have Howe come in for Parker, Hill come in for Steele. Hatters, just quickly before I get Dan's ins and outs and what he thinks, do you think that there's any room to budge now Mason Cox moving into the prelim final?
Oh no, he did definitely more than enough, I think, to play at least in the preliminary final. We saw just the structure of the side. Unfortunately for Dan McStay, he's got himself out of form at the wrong time of the year. I don't know whether it's maybe the consecutive knee injuries that he's got, that he's just struggling to have confidence in his legs to possibly ruck. Whether he's got the strength in his legs to ruck. But yeah, Mason Cox, we don't want him, or we don't expect him, to dominate. Just expect him to break even in the ruck. Play his role. Excuse me.
So Sean's made a comment here, and this is really good. he said, he goes, great call with the changes. If Checkers isn't 100%, McStay as well. And I think that's not a bad one because even though Checkers isn't overly tall, it's sort of a like-for-like deep in the forward line, so you can bring in another tall even with Mason Cox playing. So I think Checkers is definitely a watch in this sense here. Dan, what have you got for us with the changes? Are you thinking along the same lines, or you got anything else to add?
I agree with Sean. If Checkers, look, he's such an important player for us, but if he's under any sort of doubt, I definitely would be bringing McStay for him. Cox does play. There's no question about that. If Checkers is okay and the week off gives him, helps his hand, helps his, his toe issue that he's dealing with, then he's so important. He stays as well. His form has been down, but and my gut feel is it's due to injury. Hopefully, like playing 2 games in 5 weeks will help him recover a fair bit. And this is where the week off's really going to benefit our list. Still, Parker, I was super impressed with. Parker's harmless and composure. I loved. Still, when he came on, he looked like he belonged. He wasn't overall.
Unfortunately, they're probably going to be the hard luck stories if we were to make the grand final, though, because they're just on the outer in the sense of like they're just like on the edge. And if we had a even more of a healthier list, and let's say for example, Reef and Harvey Harrison were ready to go too. I mean, the selection drama that we'd have would make the biggest headlines I think ever moving into a grand final with players that could miss out. Just quickly, I've seen a couple of comments here, and just one that I'm going to get back to in a minute from Michael about the preliminary final about Geelong. We will touch on that because we're going to go over the other games in a minute. But the one comment here that I've got would be, again, from Michael. It says, only question mark I have for Bobby Hill is that I don't think he is ideally suited to being a sub. And then Chris has come out and said I think Bobby will come in as a sub. Do you think if Bobby does play in the prelim final that he becomes the sub?
Yeah, I think they probably would. I get that idea that he's not ideally suited as a sub, but I'm not sure who. If he would start on the ground, then who would be sub? Then that's the difficult part of it. Maybe Lipinski could come on. If they wanted to start.
He's actually been playing all right though. He's been playing pretty.
Yeah,
good.
I know, and that's the problem. The only thing I could think of is whether it's maybe if we get to the grand final and it's a really wet day, that if Mychek doesn't get up, that they go with someone who's a bit of a hybrid like Hoskin Elliott, and he could be a sub.
I still think
I
still think, and this is not the romantic side of it because he's retired and stuff like that, but I still feel there's a chance for Hosky to come into the team. But I think it's very dependent on who we play at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's probably less likely because he wasn't even an emergency for this first final against the Crows, so he's probably a little bit outside the picking order. But you never know what could happen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like Bobby, like as a sub in the prelim, I don't mind. I'm not. If you're subbing at a lipper for Bobby in the prelim, look, I'm not 100% convinced on that. But I think Bobby will be a good sub because he comes on halfway through the third, brings that energy. Very much like 2023. Remember when Ginnivan was sub?
Ginnivan, yeah.
The Geelong game. Remember he came on the Geelong game?
And his big roars and the crowd got up and he created energy. So I've got a gut feel he will come in as a sub and Hell will come in Parker and they'll be the changes and that's it. And the only, if he, as I said before, is if Mychek's not 100% fit to play and perform, they may bring in a McStay, but Guffill says McStay's not going to play unless Checkers rules himself out. I think the team's pretty much done from here on in. I reckon it's just Al Parker make way, Bobby Al come in, and that's pretty much it. And obviously, this injury occurs, but yeah.
Yeah, I just on that too. I have another theory that, for example, let's just say that out of Bobby and Howe, who you think would be the two that would come in for the prelim final, provided that everything goes well with Bobby Hill and he gets accepted back. If Howe doesn't get up and that leaves Parker or Steele in the side, you think Parker because of the positional areas. So Steele would come out, Hill would come in, Parker stays in. Would you play Parker starting off, or would you play Bobby Hill starting off if Jeremy Howe's not playing? Because that sort of opens up where, hang on a second, you've got that player in Parker who can be a sub. Personally, myself, I'd just probably play Parker at the start and then bring Bobby Hill in once the game's sort of gone and players are a bit more worn out, and then you've got that electricity that comes in. Because if you do it the other way around and Bobby's then cooked halfway through the third quarter, I don't think Parker will probably bring in the composure and the finesse and doing whatever, whereas Hill comes in and he lights everything up and then he runs rings around people. So I think that will be the better one there if Howe doesn't get up. But I mean, that's kudos to Parker and to Steele for, how their seasons have gone, especially Rowan Steele coming in and, he's already played, his part in a quarter final, which I think is massive. Do you think, though, there's any room for Tom Mitchell coming back into the side? That's another one we haven't touched on. Dan, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, no. Long's performance, especially in that third quarter, and keeping Dawson, pretty much ineffective. Long stays in the team. He had a few quiet weeks, but gut feel says I think the week off was really good for him. He's spread outside of a stoppage. He's harmless. He's tackling. He definitely stays. Unfortunately for Titch, who I love, unless there's an injury, once again, him and Will Elliott. But I look back to past years, like 2010, we had Lockyer, Medhurst,
O'Brien.
Yeah, Fraser O'Brien, that were stalwarts of the club that missed out just because players like McCaffar, Jared Blair, Dane Beans, and young Still Sidebottom all came into the team and stepped up. And that's what you need to win a flag. So it's a good sign that players like Will Oscar Elliott, Titch, and McStay can't get into the team because it shows depth that you need to win a flag. So yeah, I don't believe Titch will come in unless there's an injury. No chance.
All right. Well, we'll probably leave that. We'll probably park that for now because we'll probably hear some more over the next few days and how training goes. And there's a million things that can possibly happen from now until then. Hopefully, nothing too major. But the two semi-finals that happened also. So the other game, obviously, the other quarterfinal too, we'll quickly touch on, which was the Geelong-Brisbane game. I mean, do you think it was more Geelong's class or Brisbane just having an off day with that one there, Hatters?
Oh, Geelong was super impressive. Probably, a bit of a combination of Geelong not allowing Brisbane to play well, but their game is in great order. The Cats. I mean, much was made about them having a soft run and whether they might be exposed because of that soft run, not playing against some top 8 sides, but they look super impressive to me. I guess for Geelong, similar to us, they've got another week off. They've got a couple of older guys that would appreciate the rest. They've got a home preliminary final. They play well at the MCG. So yeah, if you're a Cat supporter, you'd be pretty happy at the moment.
I was one of the ones that kept on saying that they've played all the easy beats. They're flat track bullies. They're not going to be hardened enough for finals. It looks like they've actually played themselves into form and they've got their structures perfectly fine and everything looks quite well. Dan, just quickly, what are your thoughts on the Brisbane Geelong game?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a different view. I'm not. Look, Geelong. I think it's going to be Geelong Pies, Granny, and I don't want to go too far ahead in our predictions. So that's going to come, but Brisbane are beaten. Like they're battered. They've got injuries galore. Underdone Neil, Berry that's injured. McCluggage definitely carrying something. Hipwood gone. They got players. Payne's not even playing. They're just battered. Now, Geelong are super impressive and they scare the hell out of me. But am I convinced on them and their output? If there's going to be an upset in the prelim, it's going to be an Adelaide or Hawthorn that beat Geelong. And that's my prediction with that. I believe that the Pies will take care of either the Suns or the Lions, just for the simple fact that Suns, they're going to find it difficult at the MCG, 90+. Lions are battered. No Neil, as I said, I've mentioned injury. Whereas the Hawks or Adelaide could upset the Cats. And there's always one prelim final that's always close, and I reckon it's going to be that one. Do I think Geelong are frauds? Absolutely not. They got stars everywhere. They can, they scare the hell out of me. They always match up well against us. They're good. But am I convinced that they're 100% back? I'm not sure yet. Time will tell.
So,
but yeah.
So what have we got with just on that too? Because you've obviously mentioned the Hawthorn and Adelaide. What are your thoughts then with that Adelaide Hawthorn game that's been played in Adelaide? Who do you think is going to get up on that one there?
Look, Crows did beat Hawks last time around. Hawks generally don't travel super well. They're okay, but they're not like in our Essex when they travel. Rankin and I think Rochelle's going to be back, but he'll be underdone. On paper, neutral ground, Hawks will beat them. Will the Crows respond? I think they can, but I think the winner of those two are going to give Geelong an almighty fright. Whether or not that's good enough to beat Geelong, I'm not too sure, but I don't think Geelong's going to have an easy prelim. So gut feel says Adelaide just beat Hawks. They've lost Deer. There's still no Day, obviously. He's out for the year. I'm just tipping Adelaide, and I would not be surprised if Adelaide give the Cats a bit of a scare, or the Hawks if they manage to get up. But it'll be a close game, Adelaide Hawks.
Alice, your tip for that one?
Yeah, but I'm pretty much similar. I think the Crows, apparently I heard a stat, there hasn't been a top side, a number one ranked side who finished on top of the ladder, go out in straight sets since 1969, which happened to be Collingwood, of course. I think the Crows might just find a way to win in a great sort of tussle. But I've got a few Geelong mates who are shit themselves about facing Hawthorn, given the history between Geelong and Hawthorn in finals. So
I think they're a smoky. Look, my personal opinion on this one here is I don't see Adelaide losing against Hawthorn. I just think they're consistently, especially for the back end of the year, for the last month and a half, 2 months, Adelaide were probably the best side in the competition. Geelong, obviously, are extremely close, but I do think Adelaide finished on top of the ladder for a reason. So I do see them at home, and if you go on, I know it's a little bit contradicting compared to, because we only played Adelaide a couple of weeks ago and lost to them, I think a week before or 2 weeks before they played against Hawthorn, and it was a very similar style of game to our one against them in round 23, where Hawthorn jumped them at the start and Adelaide just showed composure and ran over them. I think the way both teams match up, I see that game being very similar. I do see Adelaide getting over the top of Hawthorn, but I don't see Adelaide beating Geelong at the MCG. I do, however, feel that if Hawthorn were able to pull one off against Adelaide, that they would give Geelong more of a run in the prelim final than what Adelaide would. So it's going to be very, very interesting. The other game that we've got, obviously, is the big one, is the probably the biggest Q clash. I think it is the biggest Q clash ever. It would be the biggest Queensland-based game of football, I think, in history. And that's, all the Collingwood Brisbane games and, the statement win that Gold Coast had against us, a couple of months back now. But this is the big one. This is the Q clash. It's at the Gabba. It's Brisbane and Gold Coast. I can't find a winner out of this game. And I think it's more now because we're in the position that we are. I think it's more now when I try and tip this game, it's a preference of who I want to play more than who I think is going to win, because I think it's going to be so close. I'm taking on board everything Dan said in regards to their injuries and they're battered, and no Lachie Neale is a complete game changer, whoever they play against, especially if they were to play against us. I do, however, think that Gold Coast riding the wave of momentum might actually get over the top of them. I think the only saving grace is that it's not at People First Stadium. I know it's at the Gabba, but I think that Brisbane won't be able to stop the momentum of these kids just doing everything that they can, and really they've got nothing to lose. I know there's a spot in a prelim final, but they don't have anything to prove, Gold Coast, and that's why I think they might just be able to get over the top of Brisbane. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, Gold Coast historically haven't travelled well this year. They put in an unbelievable performance, and I do agree with you that like a wave of momentum, it counts for so much. Like we seen the Dogs do it in 2016, just go away and just win, win after win. We do fall into the trap that we sort of underrate the team that loses the qualifying final and overrate the team that wins the elimination final, and we fall into that trap quite often year after year. I'm still picking Brisbane, but it won't be like a blowout or anything. I still believe that they can just get over the line, but that will be it for Brisbane for the year, in my opinion. I think they've got one win left in them. They're running on on fumes at the moment, and I just don't believe that their injury and health is one of your best assets this time of year. And Geelong and the Pies have got it, Hawks to a degree, and the Lions just simply don't. But at the Gabba, I'm still picking the Lions. Just
It's for Fred. People First Stadium is the Gold Coast home ground, just so you know. Yeah, how does your turn?
Yeah, it's a shit.
Yeah, no. Carrara is a good ground. I've been there.
It took me an hour and a half to get home from it. I had to walk down a freeway to catch an Uber for an hour.
There's buses right outside the ground that take you to wherever you want to go.
Just on that.
The line was like about 80 metres long.
Don't worry about the line. I've been there plenty of times. You're in the line for about 10 minutes and then you're on the bus.
Yeah. Just on that too, I went to, just off topic for a quick second, this is going back now like 10 years ago. I went to a Melbourne Storm game just with my mates who were in Queensland, and Storm happened to be playing that weekend, so we're like, stuff it, we'll go. They played against Gold Coast, and I think the stadium back then was called Skill Stadium as well. And the stadium, it's an amazing football stadium, like soccer stadium, rugby stadium. It's amazing, yeah. I swear to you, it is in the middle of nowhere. That's that rectangular stadium, and it took an hour and a half to get public transport back to Surfers Paradise. So I think if Carrara, I haven't been to Carrara, so if it's anything like that, I know what you're saying. But anyway, I'll just take
mate, I'm tipping the Lions. They've shown this year when they've had a bad loss, they've rebounded well. Obviously, Neil's going to be a loss, but I'll probably just throw in Zach Bailey into the midfield. They got the Ashcroft boys. McCluggage might be a little sore, but I just think that they'll find a way to win. I reckon emotionally that win that the Gold Coast had, it actually might take a little bit out of them. And also, yeah. So, I mean, it could spur them on, but I reckon like just mentally they're thrown so much into this first final. Long flight there, long flight back. Brisbane have got the finals, experience. They're the reigning premiers. They'll just get it done by a couple of goals, and then hopefully, they have a shit one against us in the prelim.
That'd be nice. Jesus. So it looks as if our game is going to be the Geelong. So the Geelong prelim final is technically the second the second prelim final because Collingwood beat Adelaide in the first qualifying. So we're technically called the first prelim final. So it looks as if the second prelim final will be played first, and that's going to be a Friday night at the MCG. Which brings us over to our game, which whoever we do play against, we are looking at the moment, a Saturday twilight game at the MCG. That's what's been reported so far.
I've heard possibly there might be a tweak to that. If Geelong and Hawthorn end up playing each other, they might actually play on the Saturday twilight, and it might be Collingwood Brisbane on the Friday night.
Okay, so I've always wanted to use this banner quickly because it's just been sitting here for the whole time. And we've got some breaking news. Is that going to come up in a second? There we go. Breaking news. Hatters, can you say that again, please?
Breaking news that if Geelong and Hawthorn play in the preliminary final, they may well play on the Saturday twilight game, and Collingwood and Brisbane, or Collingwood and Gold Coast, may play on the Friday night. And that's just basically on the basis that if, say, Gold Coast or Brisbane were to defeat Collingwood, that would give them an extra day's travel flying back to Queensland. But as we know with the AFL, everything's pretty liquid. All the media seems to think that we're going to be playing Saturday twilight. But yeah, don't be surprised if they put Geelong Hawthorn on Saturday twilight, just to accommodate the Geelong supporters travelling up from Geelong. Yeah, so that
big 45 minutes there that they've got to worry about too.
Well, I mean, instead of them having a Friday night game, a Saturday twilight game is better for the Geelong supporters. It might not be better for Geelong because they'll get a lesser of a rest, but I think they think that maybe Collingwood Brisbane might pinch a few viewers into the Queensland market if Collingwood and Brisbane play as well. And the AFL likes to stick it up the rugby league.
Yeah, well, they can play the game down at Geelong if they really wanted to, if they play against Adelaide, but they wouldn't do that. I'm of the opinion that if Geelong finished higher on the ladder, they should get the say they should get preference.
Oh yeah,
but
I agree.
I do agree though. If they were to play against Hawthorn, having that on a Saturday twilight, that'll give that Easter Monday vibe sort of game, which would be really massive for a prelim final. Dan, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the Friday or do you prefer the Saturday?
I don't care. It's a final. We've had a week off. To me, it's like, ideally you want a Friday because you get an extra day before the granny. You get to watch the other team play. But to me, it's a new point, especially when you get the week off. Look, yeah. But
all right, so I'm going to cut to the question now that everybody's somehow one way or another put in the chat, and we've sort of touched on it with our tips and stuff like that. But instead of tipping who you think would win, Dan, who would you prefer to win this game? Who would you like to face? Forget your head and your heart and your guts and all this type of stuff. Who would you prefer with Collingwood to play in a prelim final?
The Suns. 90,000 prelim final. Yeah, give me the Suns every day of the week. I know we're doing predictions now, but I honestly feel whoever we play, we have landed remarkably well. Melbourne game, halfway through the last quarter, I was thinking we've lost top four, we're stuffed. a week into the finals, not only do we get a softer prelim, in my opinion, either Brisbane, who are battered, or the Suns, who are inexperienced, opposed to a Geelong, who have got Adelaide or Hawthorn. We are going to get a better opportunity to play a granny than what we've got right now. Suns, I prefer to play, but I'll be confident also if we play Brisbane, but definitely the Suns.
How does?
Yeah, I'm with Dan. Exactly the same sort of feelings.
I think the Gold Coast midfield of Anderson, Rowell, was it Ainsworth, I think, is in there too. And Jared Witts has played a really good season. And then obviously Tuke Miller's playing on the half forward, but he goes into the midfield quite a bit. They've got a really good midfield that I think we can match it up with quite well. But I do think with Gold Coast, we are better than them for us up forward. Our forwards can handle their defence. And then down back, I think our backs can gain heaps of control against their forwards. I think the battle, if we were to play Gold Coast, is in the midfield. Whereas with Brisbane, with their forward line, even though Hipwood's now out for the season, it does change their structure a little bit. I do think they rise to the occasion more than anything. With Lockie Neal being out of their midfield, I think our mids have got them covered against McCluggage and those likes. Whereas our back line against their forward line, our forward line against their back line is always a question mark against them. With that being said, I think that we just cover the ground much better against Gold Coast at the MCG. I just think at home it's going to have the 2023 feel against GWS, having so much of the crowd one-sided. That has to play a part mentally, regardless. But with that being said, they're coached very well, Gold Coast. So we have to see what would happen there. But yeah, it's going to be a massive semi-final, and I'm actually really excited that Gold Coast did win. So there was this cute clash that everybody can see. But I think I would want to play against Gold Coast as well, more than anything.
You know what's great about this Q clash? History says whenever there's a showdown, like Adelaide v Port Adelaide,
they're flat the next week. Yeah.
Derby Freo versus Eagles, they're flat the next week because it's so intense, and the build up this week will be extreme. My only concern about playing Gold Coast is if they do win, the wave, the excitement they're going to generate can be a flow-on effect. I think Brisbane are cooked, personally.
Well, that's exactly what I said about them playing against Brisbane with this win, and Stefanos has just put a comment up here, which is spot on. If Gold Coast win, they have nothing to lose. Brisbane have all the pressure to perform, being the reigning premiers, and I think there is that slight pressure on Brisbane. Yeah. There isn't as much pressure on us because we didn't make the finals last year, but everybody knows that we're all chips in, so that's where the pressure does come onto us, where the pressure that Geelong would have, for example, is the fact that they haven't lost a game for God knows how long. The pressure Adelaide's got is the fact that they finished on top, and are they going to go out in straight sets? Hawthorn and Gold Coast, I think, are the two sides that don't have much pressure going into them in this final series, and I think Gold Coast are going to ride the wave. So hopefully, in my personal opinion, we do play against them in the prelim, but exactly like you said before, I'm pretty confident if we were to play against Brisbane, we should have them covered because they are battered. Before we finish up, it's been an awesome show tonight, boys. Before we finish up, is there any last points that you'd like to make? I've got one, but I'll wait for you guys. Any last points that you want to finish up on?
Probably because we won't have a show before. And who's your Brownlow medal tip?
Yeah, I want Nick obviously to win it. I just don't think he's had. I don't know if it's me, but I reckon he had a better year in 24 and 23.
His last two seasons have been way better than this year, but I think that the games where he has dominated this year have been like a massive standout. You know what I mean?
Weird, but look, you know what? If Nick doesn't win it, Noah Anderson's going to give it a huge shake.
Yeah, Yeah.
But I think will fall short because he had a bit of a quiet patch for about 4 or 5 weeks, I think. Noah Anderson is, he's going to be up there. But that's my tip, Noah Anderson or Nick Dacos. Yeah.
What do you reckon, Hatters?
I reckon, Nick, I don't think has had a great season. He played sort of some patches in some games where he's been dazzling, but he hasn't been as consistently as good. Now, will it be a bit like 2011 and 2010, where probably Dayton Swan had a better year in 2010, but ended up winning it in 2011? That might happen. You know, that could be. But I reckon the skipper from the Crows might end up winning it just on the basis that they won so many games, they finished so clear on top, and I don't think is there anyone really at Adelaide really going to pinch a lot of votes off him?
No. Maybe Rankin.
Yeah, maybe Rankin, but you know he
can't win it.
No, he can't win it. Yeah, but I just think over the course of the year that they won so many games, and generally, you know, if you're winning games, the winning team is getting the votes. That's going to weight in his factor.
It's a good call because who else in their midfield? And let's face it, it's a midfield award. Who else? Is going to steal votes off him? It's not going to be Berry.
Well, Berry, yeah.
What's the other guy's name? The little guy, Skillio.
Saligo.
Saligo. Yeah.
Like he's one of your Italian cousins, isn't he?
Oh yeah, distant. Like maybe the fourth cousin. That's about it.
I've got Noah Anderson winning it outright. Yeah. I just think the Gold Coast have obviously been looked at quite heavily this year. They've been winning games. They've played in some not controversial games, but standout games and stuff like that. And he's with even being an All-Australian, I just think that there's not much.
Is Rail going to pinch votes off him though? Are they going to both sort of end up on say like 22 votes each and pinch the medal off one another? Rather, if you know what I mean? Like
potentially, it could be like it could be like Josh Dacos getting the 3 votes when Nick Dacos should have got them in 23 or 22, whenever it was. But I've got Nick coming second and I've got Dawson coming third. I think Dawson will probably get some votes pinched off him from the forwards in Adelaide. But yeah, they won enough games, I think, for him to be right up there. But, you know, if Nick was to win it, it'd be typical, you know, Nick Dacos winning it the season that he probably shouldn't have won it out of the 2 beforehand. I'm just going to finish up, and there is one player that I want to mention throughout the home and away season, and I just think he's just shown so much resilience, and now coming into the finals, I think he's going to have such a key, important role for us, and that's Lachie Schultz. And if you look at the way he was last season compared to the way he is this season, and he's obviously had 2 hammy injuries. He's had a concussion injury, so it's been interrupted. But I just watched his game against Adelaide and just the little things he did, applying the pressure, even when he couldn't make the tackle, just throwing himself at it. When he made the tackle, there was massive components there throughout the game where, you know, we wouldn't have been able to score goals if he didn't do what he needed to do. And obviously, even just the barrel going forward to Darcy Cameron, it's just these first instinct things that he brings to us that Ginnivan didn't bring to us. And even though Ginnivan's had a great season, you're not going to see the pressure applied around the ground that Lachie Schultz does, not just in the forward line, in defence, in the midfield. And I think that his season this year is something that we can look on, and I think we can comfortably say that we're all comfortable with the trade that we made after the flag in 23. Anything else you guys got, Dan?
Yeah, no, look, if we bring our pressure, Bale's great. If we bring that pressure we brought, we can beat anyone. That third quarter, just watch it again. That was Collingwood at its best. And there's been a few people out have said Collingwood's best has been the best this year, and I do believe that. And I saw a glimpse of that. That was relentless. That was just so. I expect us to play in the granny, and then whether we win it or not will depend on who we play, and I guess what shape we're in terms of injuries. We're getting injuries in the prelim, but I think we'll definitely be in the granny. And I don't want to go too early on it, but I've had that gut feel. But whether or not we're good enough to win it, time will find out.
All right. Well, in regards to doing another episode of the Sherrin Stand leading up, we'll obviously see what happens in the prelim final, and we'll go from there. And then it might not be on a Tuesday night; it might be just after the Brownlow, before, if we are successful and stuff like that. So I'll keep everyone posted and stuff like that, because we've got a fair bit happening on the channel leading up to it. So it will be sort of a last minute thing, but I'll pump it out on Instagram and on socials and stuff like that, so everyone can see if we do another episode beforehand. But it'll just obviously depend on what happens in this prelim final. But we'll concentrate on the games this weekend, and then we'll assess and we'll go from there. Gents, thank you so much for tonight's episode. It's been awesome, and hopefully next time we talk, we'll either be celebrating a flag or walking into a grand final. But thanks heaps for tuning in. To everybody who's come in tonight in the chat, really, really appreciate it. We've had a massive episode tonight. We had 60 people on at once tonight, which was really good. So I appreciate everyone. If you haven't already, please make sure that you do visit the sponsors, the Hopper Bros Barbecue, for all your tips and tricks and everything barbecue. Make sure you give them a follow on Instagram, and also to New Homes Victoria. Thank you guys for your contribution. Everybody in the chat, thank you very much. Boys, lovely to talk to you, and we'll obviously have a chat soon. As always, go the Pies.
Go Woods! Go Pies!